There we are. It looks like we're on. So we're talking about sustainability, the value to your business, right? Maybe you're a fan of sustainability. If so, you'll dig the show. But if you're not, if you're a skeptic, or if you're not a skeptic, but you just like, who cares? You know, I care about business. So what, is there any value? We say there is. Listen in, you'll hear how, where, and why. Hey, everybody. My name is Bill Gallagher, scaling coach and host of the Scaling Up Business podcast. We bring our show to you every week, and we've got hundreds of shows now on everything to do with growing your business, getting the strategy right, getting the team right. And certainly that relates to our topic today, but also then executing consistently well and optimizing the cash in your business so that you have room to grow. You can take advantage of changes in the world and that kind of thing. So that is the whole show. You find all of our programs, coaching programs for every stage of company, from very early stage, maybe not quite startup, but everything kind of beyond that up through billions of dollars. All that and more, scalingcoach.com. All right, so I'm going to bring in Chris Caldwell, who's on video already. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Bill. It's great to be on. Real pleasure.
Chris joins us from a favorite town of mine, London. I'm outside of San Francisco right now, and he's near Hyde Park, where Bruce Springsteen is getting ready to play. I understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But as soon as we finish up, we'll be wandering up to catch a bit of the boss. Can't wait.
That's awesome. Awesome. So much fun. Summertime in London is just the best. Of course, I've had a great time even in February in London. So I think you just have to, the right mindset for the season. So for our listeners, Chris Caldwell is the CEO of United Renewables, and they are a renewable energy developer, Cleantech investment company. And he's passionate about all things to do with sustainability, right? Things that matter for the planet as a whole, things that matter for the people and the communities that we interact with, and the way that we run our companies. And so we thought we'd have him on the show and talk about all of that. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Great. Thanks very much, Bill. Thanks very much.
So talk to us about, you have a background that wasn't just renewable energy, right? Sort of a very different place. Tell us kind of the story arc. How did you come to your personal journey? Like, how'd you come here running this business, doing this?
Yeah, no, great. Thanks for the invitation to speak. So I started out corporate life, as a lawyer, of all things. I actually started before that, did an undergraduate in economics. And as a lot of people who do undergraduate in economics find out, you don't really know there's no jobs there. So you go into consulting or you go into law. I went into law. That was great for a couple of years. Got a chance to do a 3 months secondment in an investment bank, and that's 3 months secondment turned to a 10-year stint. It was great, enjoyed a lot. I got pretty high up the ladder. So I was running a desk in a big investment bank in London. Then the big financial crisis hit, the great financial crisis hit. And it just gave that from you continually being on a hamster wheel, just running, chasing kind of quarterly earning after quarterly earning, and always trying to like achieve and strive purely on a financial basis. It just gave that moment to kind of go, wait, maybe there's more to life than this. So I took the advantage to take a pause. Went off to London Business School, did an MBA, and left London Business School as a founder. So started out renewable energy investment business. So tapped into my old kind of City of London contacts, raised some capital, and started to build wind turbines, and then started to build solar, then started to build anaerobic digestion, and then just kept on stacking in technology, stacking in geographies. And that's 10, 11 years now. Few very scary moments, as I'm sure any founder will tell you. But yeah, don't regret it. Don't regret a day. It's best decision I ever, best professional decision I ever made was step out and do that.
Yeah. Well, I one of the things I like about the business is that you're not focused just on one thing, right? You start with wind turbines, but you're in solar, you're another. There's not like one way to solve these problems, right? Multifaceted, different things at different times, right? Sometimes the wind blows, sometimes the sun shines.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are facing, the reason that I got into renewables was because I recognized that this was, well, one, like for me, it's the greatest challenge of our generation. We need, it's something, the energy transition is something we need to get right. But also, I think it's also a great wealth creation opportunity. So like there's a need, a human need, a societal need, and there's a way to kind of, you know, put food on the table for the family as well.
Make
So
money.
kind of it ticks,
Yeah,
it ticks all the boxes. Yeah, having children kind of focus you in a bit more on that. But once you get into the world of renewable sustainability, you get kind of more and more tracks kind of get open, more and more passages get opened down when you start to look at, you know, biodiversity, you start to look at different technologies, and that's why we're now in quite seriously in clean tech investment as well, which is backing new technologies and backing new entrepreneurs to be able to try and take them to the next level, and hopefully trying to kind of make differences in other ways, not just building renewables, but also trying to kind of move us up the technological mountain that we need to get up to.
You know, it's interesting. Sustainability, right? At its heart is efficient, implies profitability, right? Wasteful, single use, like anything, that all doesn't seem efficient, doesn't seem smart, like fundamentally from business. Sometimes people feel like it's all a hippie do-gooder kind of thing, but I think it just makes sense a lot of times to be pursuing something. Why would we consume something that burns, that pollutes, that's wasteful if we could do something that is less so, is more consistent, is sort of evergreen. I mean, look, if the sun gets out, we're all dead. But as long as that sun is shining in the sky, we've got both solar energy, plus we're also generating wind and waves and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, yeah, sustainability to my mind, it's what you need to do. It's basically just long-term strategic planning. Like it's the steps you need to take to survive, thrive in the long term. Like it allows you to stop and avert the showstoppers. Like there's things that if you don't have a look at them, as if you don't kind of go back to kind of like Milton Friedman's type economics of just looking at the next quarter, quarterly growth, quarterly profits, you can miss out, and that's a massive oversimplification, I understand, but you can miss out on longer term trends, longer term issues. It might make sense for you to, for example, be polluting your local river right now, because it's costing you nothing. You're throwing your waste into this river, and this month, next month, month after, for as long as you get away with it, you're making more money than you would. But if you take a longer term view of it, you're going to, at some point, someone's going to go, hey, look what you've done. You've killed all the fish. You're poisoning our water. And it'll come back and bite you. Like reputation-wise, you're not going to survive it. So your customers will turn on you. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the road, maybe a year down the road, you'll be fine, and then you won't be. And then it'll all be taken out from you. So for me, that's the first thing. Like you're stopping those showstoppers. And second is, if you're trying to build the relationships that you need with all stakeholders, not just your shareholders. Shareholders are important, but like with your employees, with your suppliers, with your regulators, with your customers, of course, you will get longer term revenue growth. McKinsey have done a recent study, which has shown you get a 47% outperformance in revenue growth over a 15-year period. That's pretty good. That's like, as long as you're looking after your other stakeholders. So if you put those two things together, like you can be surviving like your business can go for a long time, and you'll be making more money while you're doing it. Well, what's the value of anyone's business? The value of anyone's business are its long-term cash flows. Like the sum of all of its cash flows. Put all those cash flows together, you have more because you're around for longer, and you're earning more because you're looking after the people you need to look after. Put the two of them together, you get a higher value business. Like that to me, it's a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does seem like you are undermining the future value or jeopardizing the value. So while you may not get caught or pay for it today, the long-term value of your company is undermined by doing things like that, because at some point somebody's going to be like, yeah, you're doing something that isn't. And I think there was maybe a time where we didn't know better, like where we were insufficiently aware of the implications of things, and things were getting thrown away, and we weren't thinking of where that might be.
Yeah.
And we're aware of what it was and what was going on.
Yeah. It's not just about climate and waste though. Like it's also things like using child labor down your supply chain. like things that everybody knows, and even like there's it isn't a lack of awareness that people will know instinctively that's wrong, and people will instinctively know you should be doing it. But if you're just focused on profit, then that's your myopic decision, well, that's the profit maximizing decision to take in the short run. And if people aren't going to find out, that maybe a longer run kind of profit making decision. But in this day and age, you cannot get away with it. It is not socially acceptable. So
yeah, there you could suffer irreparable PR damage, which then has impact not only on your customer base and press, investment, but also on your employees, your ability to recruit, retain people, right?
yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, your employees are fundamentally they're your business, and unless you have happy employees, so employees bringing their best selves into work, like you're going to be underperforming you from your potential. And again, for me, the best one of the taking things from a current day situation, like 80% of all businesses are complaining or that are saying that it's difficult to be recruiting right now. It's like trying to find people is hard. Whereas like economies in Europe and the US are pretty much at full employment, so getting people is difficult. But the demographics are getting even tougher. It's like 2030, we're gonna have 85 million skilled workers shortage. That's a lot of people that need filled. ChatGPT is not going to sort that out for us. It just isn't. And 2/3 of them are going to be millennials or Gen Z. And how do we, get millennials and Gen Z kind of interested? Like millennials, Gen Z are like they're different to our generations. They're like kind of Gen Xers, where there's more. Okay, just kind of break it down into stats. Like I like stats. 42% of millennials and Gen Z will value purpose over dollars. So they'll put purpose first. 20% are indifferent. So that gets you like to 62% that are at least indifferent, and then it's the remaining 38% are people who will put dollars first. Those are the guys who are going to Goldman Sachs, and that's fine. Goldman Sachs can pay them, and that's the deal that you make. Not a worry. But if you're not paying Goldman Sachs salaries and you want people to turn up as their best selves, then you need to be aligning a purpose and mission. So to do that, you need to get the values of the business aligned with the employees and have a kind of personal connection. Now, I'll give a kind of quick example from my own business. We have just recently recruited a guy from a just bizarre situation. He was cleaning the building I was in. And we just got talking. Just started having a conversation, and like I had a model wind turbine on the desk, and we started talking about it. It became pretty clear that he was massively passionate and knowledgeable about the whole renewable energy sector. Just like he was cleaning to pay the bills, but he was really like massively into it. After a couple of brilliant conversations, offered him a job. He came. He's now been absolutely key in launching of a new product line of biochar, which is kind of nature-based carbon capture and storage technology. He's been brilliant with all of the research on distributions and supply chains and all that type of stuff. It's been great. And even better, he brought somebody else with him. So he found like another friend of his, kind of young recent graduate friend of his, equally passionate about the environment and equally passionate about trying to make a difference. He brought him the organization as well. So like we've got like just from having an alignment of interest in doing something good and positive and sustainable, we got two fantastic new people in over the last few months, and that's just because you happen to have a conversation, because you happen to have a little wind turbine on your desk.
I think that working for things that you care about, we definitely see more of that. Sticking around, working harder. Definitely, there are people who spend time in their lives working for pursuits that don't light them up, but they're expedient. They pay the rent, the bills at the moment. But then you don't get their all. They don't work as long. They don't refer other people. They don't tell people about the business. So you're minimizing the effort, the passion, the contribution of anyone. And if it's all about the money, and awesome, like everybody loves to get paid well. Everybody loves to go out and have a little extra money in their pocket, a little extra money in the bank. But the passion, the extra effort is really comes from purpose and values alignment, right? And I think that's
Yeah,
true for
100%.
every generation. I'm a boomer, but where my generation and before were maybe a little bit more willing to compromise something, to suck it up, to do like, well, whatever, just like you need to pay the bills and you put in your 20 years or that. I think that whole illusion of a company that would take care of you if you just showed up is shattered and gone, dead, buried. Nobody believes that. It's not even true really in places like Japan anymore, where you're not really guaranteed lifetime employment. So the notion that a company will take care of you, it's gone. So you're not going to get loyalty. You're going to get some period of engagement as long as you're aligned, as long as you have opportunity, and which also kind of reinforces the need for profit, right? Like if you're not making a profit, you don't have a going concern. It's not a business, and you're not going to stay in business. You're not fundable, financeable. You can't manage growth, and then you're a cause-based business. You're an NGO or a charity, right? And
Yeah,
then just not going to create the same value and isn't going to uh, grow and be sustainable in the same way. They just aren't, right? There's just no examples of them doing that with any
yeah, yeah.
consistency.
Yeah, 100%. And yes, the best way of keeping your of kind of growing. Okay, how do you obtain value? I guess it is kind of kind of part of the question you're kind of teasing out there. Well, your business is valued by essentially what someone else is prepared to pay for it. If what someone else is prepared to pay for a share.
Yeah. Or
And that's all.
expectation of future value.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I'm
which is
willing to pay based
which is
on what I think.
which is what stock markets are all about. Like these
Right.
valuations that put out and said, well, in 10 years it might be worth this, or pay that now. So if you're trying to have a look at, and also trying to keep your current shareholders happy, like they will be happy if the value of that share that they have is higher. So
Mhm.
to do that, you need to have investors, and
Mhm.
I also think that sustainability is a really great way to be attracting new investments. Like it is one of the few very bright sparks in the global financial systems today. This and recently artificial intelligence are the two places that seem to be trying to where there's real investment capital in. That's kind of driven by kind of sustainability policy in Europe and major Asia. There in the USA, it's a bit more mixed, but at least the Inflation Reduction Act is focusing in on climate change as an area. The whole sustainability, the other part of the sustainability gets a bit more controversial for some reason, which we don't really understand. It's very much a US thing. Like the rest of the world thinks sustainability, yeah, okay.
Well, not yeah. I think a lot of the world is is pretty clear that sustainability has business value and is critically important for our security, right? And the U.S. is more uneven, but we're not the only place. I mean, look, Florida. I mean, Brazil was, uh, you know, burning through its
Yeah.
Amazon at a power.
Good grief. Yeah, this the amount of rainforest we lost over those few years was
Pretty
immense. Was
staggering, right?
immense.
Yeah, and I talked to a lot of Brazilians who were like, "Yeah, it's all BS," like, because they're dealing with profound social, economic challenges, and so they'll make compromises, they'll diminish things, they'll buy into a narrative that says that isn't really important, right?
I know. But we're at risk of kind of tilting into another conversation, which is kind of geopolitical,
Yeah, we
which
can
I
we
personally,
can skip the
yeah, I guess,
politics, right? So
yeah.
let's share some of the stories that we identified as we prepared the show. And I thought it'd be interesting to start out of the energy sector. Talk to us about Dick's Sporting Goods.
Yeah. Well, that is one of the good stories about customer alignment, about
Yeah,
how you can be gaining loyalty
yeah,
from your customers through sustainability. Now, in the face of particularly awful incidents, the CEO of Dick's Sporting Goods took the decision to restrict gun sales, like only particular types of gun sales, but gun sales that were used in high school shooting. There was no no economic upside that they could see, and the cost was immediately visible to them. It was about $250 million. A lot of money, a lot of money. But aided by the fact that the CEO controlled 2/3 of the shares, he pushed it through, and all of these guns were taken off. But the upside in stock price was 14, went up by 14%. Even though you had $250 million taken off your sales, its still stock price went up by 14%. Now, why was that? Does that make any sense? The reason was, even though you lost a particular segment, you lost that particular segment in the market, you obtained so much loyalty and so much kudos from another segment that it was that the stock market saw that and went, no, this is on balance. You lose some money here, but on balance you get a very strong core of loyal customers on the other side, and that's worth more. So it's about being sincere and being aligned with your values. And they took a principle stance, and the CEO, he's a gun owner. Like, this was not something that he wasn't saying all guns should go. And I'm not going to comment on the rights and wrongs of that. He's talking about their particular rifles. There was a lot of pushback, but an awful lot of support as well. And on balance, the support was worth more. Now, on the other side of that, you have something like yeah.
Yeah, wait, before you move on from that, because I think it's interesting, and it points to something that's more nuanced. In the political realm, we tend to be no guns or all guns, no limits, right? Like, and that's the political realm, right? As a CEO, we recognize, one, I have a personal belief of whatever it is, right? And then I have different customer segments and communities that I serve with a range of things. And I look at the relative value of that in the path in the world. And I say, okay, I'm going to choose this path. It's going to tick off some people over here who I'm going to lose. I'm going to lose some business, and not just their gun purchases, but I'm going to probably lose some other things there because they're going to be upset about what I did. But what will it get me in the others? And we're going to take a broader thing. And I think very often, I grew up learning to shoot guns. I have used guns, but I also have a thought that that it's gone too far sometimes. The guns without limits and obsession with things, right? So what's that balance of what's appropriate and what type and where, and does everybody need a full arsenal in their house at any given moment?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so
and the majority of people agree with.
Yeah. And so think about that. Like, who is it? If you are serving a particular corner of Texas, maybe it's going to be all guns all the time for you. Speaking speculatively, but getting aligned with the values, thinking about that thoughtfully, and not just taking a blanket approach to something, or saying we're not going to think about anything at all, because it's business. As long as there's money involved, we're good with it, right? That's the thing. I think that's a good story. And taking a financial hit in one realm, but to get more in another is another. That's like an investment, really.
For sure. And you can't be all things to all people. You can't, and you shouldn't even try. In any competitive markets, you need to pick your customer base. You need to understand the wants and needs of the guys who are trying to serve. You can't serve everybody. Like, Budweiser made a big mistake recently be amazing. Did Budweiser made the big mistake recently by trying to be all things to all people, by trying to serve everybody, and they just ended up annoying everybody. So that's a very good example of how not to do things.
So why don't you share the story of a energy misfire, right? Somebody who wanted to go down that road and then it didn't go well. BP. Talk about
BP. Yeah, BP, British Petroleum, major oil and gas major, very, very, very huge business this part of the world. In 2001, they decided that they saw the world was changing, and they wanted to move from BP was no longer British Petroleum, it's going to be beyond petroleum. So they said, right, so what we'll do to be moving on petroleum is we will invest in lots of solar and lots of wind. And that was fine, invest in lots of solar. Great. But they were kind of vague in what they were trying to achieve, and they weren't that ambitious in trying to make reductions to drilling. In fact, increased drilling. Then they had a big disaster up in Alaska. They had another disaster by Sea Horizons, big oil spill, and no, from day one, no one gave them any credit, and they all got kind of they had to drop it. It was not sincere. It wasn't well done. It wasn't well run. It was all a bit of a disaster. But recently, they then have come back and they said that it's like 2 years ago. They said they're going to be reduce oil and gas production by 40% by 2030. Hard and fast, big number for an oil and gas company, and they're going to compensate that by investing heavily in renewables and natural resources, renewables, renewable resources, energy efficiencies, new technologies. Well, up until year 2021, their share price fell 40%. They made this announcement. It went up 8%. And all of their peers were falling 40%, and so the market was telling them, and the market was saying, well, long term, we need to be leaving the majority of reserves underground because otherwise we want a plant to breathe on. What are you going to do about it? So 40% of the value dropped off on the basis of that question. When they turned around and said, well, this is what we're going to do about it, stock price went back up again, and they have been turning around. And one of the oil majors, the European oil majors seem to be pretty good in making that transition. US oil majors are much more focused in on, well, we'll just keep on doing what we're doing, but smaller and cheaper. The Europeans are undergoing an actual a transition from technology transition themselves. Different strategies, whatever, but you can be pretty sure that the European businesses will be around for longer than the US businesses, if the US businesses are entirely focused around on oil and gas.
Well, even in the Persian Gulf, right? There's a considerable interest in renewable energy and investment in other technologies and things like that, because they realize, well, if we are entirely based on a petroleum economy and then one day it dries up or the world loses interest in it, we're kind of screwed. And so they have spent a lot of time and energy. I don't know how you put it on balance, but I think it's interesting that just saying, oh, we're going to do some investing and we're going to send some messaging and we care about the environment too. And we're people who live here also. And so we're going to start to move in that, but not doing anything about the rest of the business and the larger picture, no real hard commitment there. And then having a couple of, extraordinary, but there's disasters and leaks in the oil business. That's a pretty regular occurrence. Some are massive and some are fairly minor, but before too long, if you're doing enough of it, you're going to have a problem, right? And that you could see that spanking them, and then seeing the suffering of the stock price, and then actually making a bigger, deeper commitment to something, and you could see it starting to recover. I do note that the differences in percentages are profound, though, right? If we lose 50% in value, we've got to have 100% increase to get back to where we were.
It did really focus the mind. Like, if your stock price keeps on falling, it's like, well, what are we going to do about this? Like, we're being told somebody wants something else from us. So what do we do? And they said, well, sustainability is the way forward. Well done. Thank you. Finally, VP.
Look at the value over time of Tesla, right? Tesla, one of the things I love about Tesla is they took things that felt more like the concept cars that Detroit used to show us, and they actually made things that felt futuristic. And they were boldly working on something. Now, you could argue about their profitability and their fit and finish and their production capacity, and there's a whole lot of nits you could pick there with them. But you look at the valuation increase and how it related to all other car makers, and it's that future value, right? People look and they're like, those are dinosaurs who are dying, traditional car makers, and here's a company that's like the future, and say what you want about it, but that's two different worldviews and generating different stock values.
Absolutely. Yeah, Tesla have genuinely transformed the auto market, like almost single-handedly. Yeah. They've shaken up an incumbents, all of the incumbents. I just told them there's a new way forward, it's a better way forward. For me, I have an electric car, would never turn back. I think they're better in every possible way, and their valuation is based on the making things that are, they're fundamentally they're pretty cool. Yeah, and they've
They're
got,
cool. They're definitely cool. Yeah. I
and
remember the first time I got in a friend's Tesla Model S, and the door handles came out, and then we got in, and the dash was cool. And he's like, "Here, watch this." And he put his foot into it, and my head snapped back, and I'm like, "Holy crap, that's no Prius."
yeah, no, yeah, they are, and they're still like remarkably
Yeah,
good cars.
yeah.
But they transformed the whole industry. Like the entire
Yeah.
industry is
And the
moving.
secret thing is that charger network, right?
Yeah.
But Chevy Volt and Bolt are interesting cars. The Leaf is an interesting thing, for a renewable thing, but totally different when you build that supercharger network.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how it is working across the US, but it is so much easier now than it was last year, the year before, to find church chargers everywhere now. Like, I mean, literally everywhere. You pull up into every hotel, every supermarket, every mall, every parking lot. There's chargers for your car with three different hoses you can plug in, and
It's increasing a lot more now. It's still not where it needs to be. And while the Tesla supercharger network is good, the amount of press and experiences that people have with the other chargers not working half the time, so they plan a trip that goes somewhere and it doesn't work. That's been a significant issue with the infrastructure here. But
yeah. Well, yeah, it's not without its teething problems, but what transformation is, that's. We do need to keep thinking. We do need journeys to be smooth, but give it another 18 months and it'll be eternal.
As a surfer, sailor, and a kid who grew up for a time living in a van in Europe, a VW van, I'm very excited about this new electric van. I kind of think that getting one of those could be like a car for me, maybe later next year or something.
Yeah, brilliant. It should be super fun.
Yeah, the bus. The new ID Buzz. So let's talk about some others. I don't know a lot about Ørsted, the energy company, but maybe tell us about what.
Yeah. Just really briefly, like Ørsted was one of the very large Nordic, Nordic, like Scandinavian oil companies, oil and gas companies, and they it wasn't quite on the drop of a hat, but it was pretty much a drop of a hat. They said, no, we're not doing this at all anymore. Divested all of their oil and gas assets and are now the largest offshore winds manufacturer in the world by far.
A hard cut, yeah,
absolute hard cut, and they're enormously successful. And they're pioneers in the technology. They're pioneers in the engineering. They are everywhere you look, anywhere that you see governments putting up land offshore, Ørsted are there, and they're going to be a business that is like every turbine they put up will be generating for 30 years, if not more. And they will continue, and they're building and building and building. It's a super business. Yeah, and that like utterly transformed from where it was. I don't know what else to say about it, but it is a great example of a company that went from that took the view that what we're doing now will not be a business that will serve us well for the next kind of it'll serve us well the next 5 years, maybe 10 years, but after that it'll be gone. All the values are going to be ended. We need to make a big change. So they made the most dramatic change you can imagine, going from taking the skills that they had from offshore drilling and like being out there and understanding the seas and understanding how to have large structures built, but instead of oil rigs, they're putting in wind turbines. So it's taking their skill set and moving it into a different kind of related field, still energy. They're still an energy company, but the technology they're using is entirely different, and it's one with a long future.
I think the interesting thing here is, so we're talking a lot about energy companies in particular, but not only that, also retailers. And when I think about my old company, and we were selling fashion jewelry, right? And I was working on like, how do we make this a huge company? And my wife's like, yeah, I don't know. Like, it seems so wasteful, and we're producing new things, new all the time. And it seems disposable. And should we really be doing that? And I'm like, well, why don't we figure out a way that makes a difference? And as I started to look at the problem, then I realized we weren't going to do it as one company, but it needed to be an industry thing. So we started to create and contribute to industry conversations about sustainability. And that meant materials, the mining, sourcing of what went into it. It also meant labor practices and then all the surrounding things, packaging and stuff like that. And so we focused on this concept we branded clear conscience jewelry. Like you wanted to wear something and not feel like it was trashing the world and hurting people in the process, right? And this is around the time shortly after the blood diamonds movie came out as well, which is another factor of not, I mean, the most extreme thing of like war and killing around the trading of diamonds in particular, funding wars. But we were just thinking about like um, pollution, and we were thinking about bad labor practice, and we were thinking about factories that we'd visited considering to do business with where they felt so toxic just walking around them. I didn't need a bunch of testing data to tell me that probably wasn't a good place to work, right? Like you could feel it, smell it. And so we started looking for where could people afford, where were people paid well enough that they could afford to send their kids to school so their kids weren't forced to work in the same industry generation out. They weren't trapped in something. They had agency, they had choice, right? We started to look at community thing. We started to look at quality of living. And so they might be paid less in certain places, but that still meant they could afford transportation, schooling, food, housing, and so was that sustainable? Yes. And then we looked at recycling. We looked at the wasteful practices, right? But that made a huge difference in for some of our customers, but not everyone. Not everyone cared. Not everyone wanted to hear that story.
Absolutely, yeah. And it reminds me of a story that a professor of mine at Yale, Zoe Chance, says. Zoe's actually remarkable herself. She was brand ambassador, so brand manager for Barbie for Mattel, a kind of global brand manager. And she kind of asked herself the question of, well, what does success look like? Everyone in America has a Barbie. Is success everyone in America having two Barbies? Really? Just again, this like petroleum plastic product. Like, is that
how much? Yeah.
Yeah. So
Who is this?
Zoe Chance, right? She's a professor at Yale. Then she went back into academics, went into Yale, and she teaches a class on influence. She's great. Look up her book, Influence is My Superpower. So it's really, really good. But she tells the story about meeting with Patagonia. And how they were talking about, they were making a decision on their own sustainability practices, and like there was one particular factory that there was a financial decision needs to be made. Like, do we stop using this particular chemical, this particular process, which people are complaining about, and go to something which is much more expensive?
Right.
And there's some kind of serious debate going on there. So what they decided to do was get in a bus, drive the whole board down. Whole board went down, pulled out outside the factory. They didn't even need to get out of the bus. The smell, just what you're saying. The smell and the environment. Just turn around back out here. Decision made, all done. Right, we change it. We're not doing that anymore. Sometimes it's as simple as that. You just need to go. Need to go to understand the facts of
experience it firsthand. Yes, yeah. You could feel it. You could tell. Yeah, this is not something we should be doing. Yeah.
Yes.
And then you start to think about, well, if we're going to incur some extra costs or some hassle, what are we going to do to make up for that? How do we still stay a business, right? How do we still make a profit at something? How do we still have some growth room?
Well, Patagonia is a brilliant example of that. Like their entire marketing is, we're making stuff that's really good, so you don't have to throw it away. We don't want you buying any more. You buy one bag. We don't want you buying a second bag. Like that's an anathema to most businesses. Most businesses want repeat customers. Everyone else said no. But it's their marketing, their branding all around that gave them massive credibility. And like they do have wonderful products. Like there's no fairness. But there's also the sincerity built out through it, because when the CEO then stepped down and resigned, he gave away his entire fortune to charity. Like, my goodness, like that is a seriously aligned human being. Like it's built a remarkable business on the basis of his own beliefs, and it's a worldwide, enormously successful business.
Yeah, it really is. And the combination of their commitment and their product design, the integrity of the way that it all works together, the way they run the company, I think is when we think about sustainability more broadly, outside of something like an energy sector where it's really obvious, but in any other sector from fashion jewelry to apparel to and equipment, retail, that kind of thing. What are we actually thinking about here? How are we operating the business in a way that is lasting is without risk, or future, some balloon payment when somebody figures out what you polluted or what you did that was damaging, right? When there's a huge lawsuit against your company because of something, right? That's what we're avoiding when we think sustainability, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not simply the environment and energy, although that's certainly obviously a big
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like sustainable, you're also looking at kind of governance issues as well, like how you run your own business. Like it's no use. It's no you not you need to have like proper systems and controls. Like you need to watch your finances. You need to make sure that people aren't doing things they're not supposed to be doing.
right,
It's all about the things that can trip you up in the long run. Look out for
right,
them. Sort them out first. Yeah. What if you get them sorted, then go and have a look and say, well, why am I here? Like, what is this business all about?
yeah,
If we disappeared, what would the world miss?
yeah,
Right. That's we figure out what your purpose is. Then kind of break it down and look and say, well, what are the really key things that we can be doing to try and drive that purpose forward? Keep it simple. Keep a couple at them. Don't try and be all things to all people, but become really really good at those couple of things. Like it's not it's not rocket science, but it's really important. Like so, if you kind of focus on one or two areas, like it might be diversity, it might be efficiency, it might be could be anything, whatever is really key and important to you. Like if you have a look at say like Starbucks, like their purpose, their mission purpose is we believe in the pursuit of doing good. Nothing to do with making coffee, is it?
right,
Molson Coors believe in like their mission is to unite people to celebrate life's moments. Like again,
yeah,
nothing to do with beer, but try and be like you have a big purpose, something that can never really be finished, that can never really be completed, and
right,
then underneath that, look at your strategic like goals and missions. Those are things you should be trying to complete. If you're trying to figure out how the sustainability part of it, talk to your employees about what's really important, and try and get them on board, and try and make them your great advocates, both in the world and to new employees. Right, so we can talk about this forever, how to embed it and all these things, but I recognize we're running a little bit short of time. We should probably come back
well,
to
my
this.
so my purpose is helping leaders build a better world. I am deeply moved every time I see that I've helped a leader grow their company in some way for something they care about, right? The people that I work with for any appreciable amount of time are people that what they want to do is net positive, whether they figured out it or not at the time and have said it well, but they're all doing something that makes the world better in some way and make a profit of it. So that's my purpose, right? And I'll never be done with that if I work to the day I die. But then along the way, I said, well, before I retire, I'd like to reach 5 million. I'd like to help 5 million in some way, 5 million business leaders with whatever it is they care about that makes the world better. And so I set out to do that. And that was a profoundly different thing. Like, and I started to think about, well, given the very small number of people that I worked with at the time, I didn't see a pathway to getting there. But I'm like, that's worth giving the rest of my career to. And so I started to grapple with that. And then this year, 10 years later, I'm about to hit the first million
Wow.
people impacted, right? Between this show and the workshops and the global accelerator program that I help run and a number of things like that, that impact is there. So you take that purpose that you talked about, and you pick something significant way out there and you let it transform you, right? You let it impact. Now, I still work with a small number of people at a very deep private way that generates a lot of income for me. But then I touch a whole lot more people with things like this show and our bigger workshop programs and so on. So, big shout out for me then. If you're listening, if you want to know more, we're actually about to launch a new program that'll have more room for people kind of in between the accelerator stage and our typical scaling up coaching, a new range of scaling up coaching. And you'll find all that and more at scalingcoach.com. So if you want to go and see anything about those programs or our shows or the tools or any of that stuff that we talked about, or you'd like to get subscribed there to be notified when we launch that program in the next little bit and be one of the first people in that new program. That's really designed for people who want to grow, but scaling up has been just a little too much for them. But they'd like some active coaching. We're going to have a coaching there for companies that are, say, between 1 and 10 million, which has not been the typical place that we've played. So if you want to get on that, scalingcoach.com. So let's close it out and say a couple things. I think we've talked about the value of the company, the long-term value, ensuring that you don't jeopardize the value. And we've talked about the impact on all your constituencies, your employees, their engagement, the retention, the attraction, how much it makes your life, the stock value potential of thinking broadly about sustainability and getting way out of that. If you want to know more about Chris and his company, you're going to find it. We'll put the link up here, but it's unitedrenewables.im. That'll take you there. unitedrenewables.im. You can see all about his company and what they do in there. Chris, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show.
It's been great. Thank you so much. Thoroughly enjoyed it, Bill.
Well, and I should give some shout outs to some other folks in the background, behind the scenes there. Wanda Mitchell getting our show ready, scheduled out the door. To my friend and mentor, Vern Harnish, who I'll see this week, or next week, actually, in Denver, and with one of our clients. And then to the folks at Podfly Production, who edit our audio and create our show notes and all that kind of stuff and more. Thanks again, everyone, for watching, for listening. We'll talk to you again next time. Keep scaling up.